Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video. After a brief, hiatus, this is my return to Kill Team, but with an event review, this time of the Warhammer World Kill Team Tournament just gone by. Now before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment as what you thought and whether you'd like to see more content like this for Kill Team, where I basically map my competitive progress with the game at tournaments and events. Now, if you're familiar with my content, normally I did these on my blog with Warhammer Underworlds, but I decided to put on both my YouTube and my blog because, I'm really new to Kill Team and I'm enjoying discovering a new game again, just because it's really fun to learn with everyone. Now, for my Kill Team, as you know, I've played quite a lot, especially on the channel. I think I've played most of the factions in the game right now. So it took me a while to settle on what I wanted to run. And after chatting through with my friends and, reading through the compendiums and all the books for Kill Team and the missions, I decided to settle on Hive Fleet, Tyranids, partly because I own a big Tyranids army and I have a scheme that I think looks good and I can replicate quite quickly. I did contemplate running Custodes, but the problem is at the moment they're just far too good and, in my opinion, quite oppressive to play. And while I don't hold it against anyone who wants to play them, I don't really enjoy playing stuff like that. I like my opponent being able to react in some way, and the problem I have with Custodes is they just beat a lot of factions at the moment because they fundamentally break the game and they're just too hard for some to deal with. Then I did think about Harlequins, but the problem with Harlequins is painting them is quite difficult. And the issue is they're a very finesse-heavy kill team. And the problem is if you make one mistake, they all just fall apart. So I just decided to stick with my Tyranids, just because I enjoy running Gene Stealers. They're very good, and, the mobility of the kill team is quite insane. And it allows me to play fast and loose, which is how I generally like to play games. As for the roster of my kill team, first off I used, it was going to always be 10 Gene Stealers. And then I had 3 warriors which had the mixed loadout. So they all had Death Spitters with Lash Whip Bone Sword and then a Heavy Gunner with a Venom Cannon. And then the problem I had, because I had 7 slots left on a 20 unit roster, I then went with Tyranid Swarm for 6 Hormagaunts and 1 Termagant with a Devourer, because that's technically 1 fire team, because the Termagant counts as 2 slots. For that fire team selection, while still only being 7 models. So that was my way to complete that. And I had a lot of success with that, just practicing. And part of my practice was attending the Badmoon Tournament. Now, before going into the Warhammer World event recap, I'll just quickly go over my time at the Badmoon Tournament, which literally happened 1 week before this, the Kill Team event. And it was mainly because of just some practice, The only problem, I was playing on the Sunday morning after my night shift, because I'd just done 3 nights. But the problem is that was the only way I could play. And I really wanted practice, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go and swap shifts basically to get the Kill Team tournament off at Warhammer World. And it was going to be fun, 4 games with my friend Charles, who's regularly played on the channel. So we're going to see how much we would do when playing against basically brand new people. Because while I played a lot of games against Charles and Izan and doing some intro games at my local clubs, wanted to see how I'd do in a tournament format. Now, for the event as a whole, it was partly run and I think, helped set up anyway by Glass Half Dead Gaming, which you should totally check out. And it was looking like to be a really good event. I think it sold out at 32 players, so it was going to be a real test. Going into game 1, I think it was not loot and salvage, it was like take and hold. So I was against a lovely Tau chap, and as you can see from the board, it's quite large terrain. But it was an interesting game. He couldn't really shoot at me because of my Gene Stealers are invisible while concealed, and I went with Seek and Destroy. So first turn I did my YOLO charge tactic of challenging a Pathfinder and declaring rout. So then I sacked a Gene Stealer to kill him and then get 3 points, and then he shot and failed to kill the Gene Stealer, and it took 2 more operatives to kill the Gene Stealer. But that kind of reflected how the game went. He couldn't really shoot at my Gene Stealers until they'd made a charge and revealed themselves. But the problem with this was I already outnumbered him. And then by the end of turning point 3, I'd wiped him out. And it was just really brutal. We finished in 45 minutes. It was just a great chat to play, but I managed to max out everything. So I managed to max out primaries and secondaries. So I got a full 18 points and was one of the top players at the end of the round. But it was a really fun game, albeit quite brutal. So yeah, hopefully it was going to be a reflection of how the rest of the day would go, for me anyway. Next was game 2 against Custodes. Now this was a really tough game because I'd been planning out how to beat Custodes. Wasn't helped by the board, but it was going to be an interesting game. How it worked was, once again, I'd gotten priority by winning thanks to my plan with the scouting phase tech, and I YOLO'd a Genestealer down the left flank. Now, because he'd played Aegis of the Emperor, I fluffed one of my rolls, so that sister ended up living on 1 wound, so I failed to score route, completely unscored challenge, and then he fell back and killed it. And the problem was, if that Genestealer had killed that sister, I would have been able to, well, get a free VP from that. And once again, he would have had to force his, Custodes and forces to pull back to deal with that Genestealer, so I could have moved up more freely. Now, while he did hang back, and I was able to hold the objectives for turning points 1 and 2, by turning points 3 and 4, I just lost too many Genestealers, and due to the open nature of the board, I just got shot apart and unfortunately just got wiped out, although I did manage to slow down his scoring and score some points as well as finish off some of my secondaries. And I managed to end the game 14-7 and took the most points off of him for the tournament. So it was tough. He was a really good player, but was partly let down mainly by the board due to the large piece of terrain blocking so much movement for me, just all the open spaces. Also, and yeah, it didn't help with me fluffing that attack row even with Relentless, but, you know, dice are dice. It is what it is. Game 3 was against the Harlequins on, unfortunately, the same board, but it was an interesting mission where I was basically trying to hold the most objectives. So because he was focusing more on killing, he spent turn 1 moving up onto the floor above me, so he allowed me to hold 4 objectives. Well, he allowed me to hold all objectives. So that basically gave me 4 VP on turn 1. And then he began dropping down to shoot and kill me. But because of some, jammy dice rolls and my positioning, I managed to effectively kill more than he could kill me. So at the end of turning point 3, I had pretty much wiped him out. And yeah, I outnumbered him, beat him on primaries and scored some more secondaries. And yeah, it was a weird game because he was clearly trying to wipe me out and just ignoring the objectives entirely. But it was still quite tough because I just didn't realize how oppressively strong the Harlequins could be. But yeah, I just managed to, just win out just barely, at least from a numbers standpoint, but quite well on the mission points as well. So that always goes, once again, to show you don't always focus on killing. You need to focus on playing the mission. And it was also where I was starting to find Seek and Destroy not working out for me so much, because with Challenge, he just ran away from my challenger and then ended up killing him with someone else. So I was getting a bit confused with Seek and Destroy. It was starting to lose its attractiveness to me, but Infiltrate wouldn't have done better just because double Genestealers is just so good into this matchup. Then finally for game 4, I was playing Awakened Data Spirits against a Grey Knights player. It was interesting because, I was quite tired at the time, so I thought I'd read the mission correctly where if you disengage the terminals, you get 1 VP. And, to Seek and Destroy again with double Genestealers. Disengaged 3, and then my opponent was like, you don't get a VP from disengaging. At the start of the game we were talking through, and I was like, okay. So I disengaged both and then moved on to the points. And then at the end of turning point 1, he was like, I get 1 because I disengaged 1 and you just cap at 4. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? I thought you said we could only get VP by holding the 2 terminals. And he was like, oh, no, you still get VP from disengaging. And at that point, I was been awake for nearly 24 hours. So I was in no mood to go, okay, whatever. So he did let me move my Genestealer back off the point. But the main problem with the game was actually the terrain once again. So even though it was more dense, the problem I had when I was defending in my own territory, the game was pretty fine. The problem was when I just moved into the open, because there were so many open spots and not really much place for me to hide, I effectively just got shot to death by Gene Stealers. I'm not Gene Stealers, by Grey Knights. So, and with only in Defter's duty end, I killed a Grey Knight, and then he effectively came back to life and killed 2 of my Gene Stealers before dying. So it was really tough for me, that game, and in the end I only lost by 1 point. So it was a good game overall, but it was mainly let down due to the board and the lack of terrain. But the funny thing is, we'd moved from a previous board, because that was just 3 massive fire lanes, so it would have just been even worse for me. So yeah, it was a tough game, but you know, I think we were fairly even. It was once again came down to terrain, which is kind of the story of the entire tournament. So yeah, after all of that, I came, I think, about top 3rd based on my results. It was an interesting tournament. I think the good thing that it was held, you know, and it was pretty much fairly well run. My only downsides at the Badmoon Cafe was ventilation got pretty rough near the end, and it got like turned into a very uncomfortable sauna. The TOing was interesting, as apparently there was a secret FAQ being used which no one was aware of. And then I only found out about this like a few days ago. And the other thing was just how missions were generally announced 5 to 10 minutes into a round. So it was just a bit confusing. And the terrain was the biggest issue, really. Now, this is not a slight against the events. None of these things are like, oh no, you shouldn't go. It was just, I understand they could only use what they had. The problem was the terrain just didn't match the boards. So you had these giant pieces of terrain eating up so much board space. Now, you did have some boards which were well populated with dense terrain. The only issue, that was like 5 out of 32 tables. And the other issue, this tournament was supposed to be 24 players, but increased to 36. And while I greatly appreciate that because it allowed me to come to the tournament, the only problem was you could see it on the tables. And that was the main thing I got from most of the players there. And from the results, shooting kill teams generally did really well there just because they could just shoot everyone off. And yeah, that was the only downside. But I completely get that, because you can't expect a tournament to host perfect kill team tournament or kill team terrain for a brand new game that's only been out for like 2 weeks. So I completely get that. Overall, it was still a really good event. Everyone I played and met was super fun and sociable. It was just really a lot of fun, and we got some great games out of it, me and Charles. And yeah, it was just really fun. There were just, you know, those minor naggles, but overall it was really good and basically a testament to how good Kill Team was. The only other weird thing was TACOP selection, because I found this is just an ITC thing, but ITC missions let you pick your TACOPs, whereas where I'm playing at Warhammer World, it's all random as in the core rules. And I'm basically a fan of random, so I've randomly picked all my TACOPs every game, whereas most of my opponents basically pick theirs. And you could have argued I was just handicapping myself, but this was preparation for the Warhammer World Tournament, so I didn't see the point of just picking stuff when that's not how it's always going to work for me if I'm picking random. But that's just pretty much it for the Badmoon recap. Now, when it comes to the Warhammer World Tournament review, once again for my Tyranids, as you'll see, I basically used the same, roster. The only thing I changed was my warriors to Lash Whip Bonesword warriors, just because I felt they were just more effective than the ranged variety. Other than that, I just completely stuck with my Tyranids and was just going to go from there. I played another practice game on the day, on the Friday, the day before, just with my friends, experimenting with different TACOPs, because that was the only thing I was still unsure on. I just didn't have enough, even though I'd played so many games. Selecting my TACOPs for a single kill team was still my biggest weakness, so I was just testing around with that. Now, before I get into things, I've also done a brief recap of this in terms of my experiences with my friend Charles and Itan on, my podcast, which you can check down in the episode description below. So if you want to hear how we did as a whole, including all of their experiences, you can check that out. It's 2 hours long, but, if you want to listen to that in podcast format after this, feel free to check it out. And also, you can check out Itan on offmetamusings.com. Now, before I get into the event review as a whole, there were some things I'd like to clarify for the event. So after the Badmoon tournament, I was pretty jaded on the terrain setup. So I was really confident with what Steve Wren, who is the Warhammer World event manager and TO for the day, was showing off. So he like showed that he had 2 boards to use off. I'll try and show them now. So we had a Vertigus board, which was using the Vertigus Terrain, basically, from their box expansion. And then he had an Octarius board, which was using the Octarius Terrain. So they had about a 50-50 split. There were 40 players, so 20 tables, so 10 of each. And the other cool thing was he told all the missions in advance, especially after round 1. They were clearly displayed in advance and told repeatedly. And the other awesome thing was there were terrain layouts and, well, not terrain layouts, but terrain rules pages next to the table, so you could easily classify what terrain was in use. So it showed you examples to pictures and goes, this was heavy, this was traversable, this was light. It was really awesome because, you know, normally you have to discuss it with your opponent, but when it's all there next to you, it's super clear. And I cannot talk enough about how good the terrain was. Like, it was all designed for the missions. The best thing, like, one problem I had with Badmoon is like objectives ended up underneath to big giant terrain pieces. But Steve was like, the first thing he said, like, all the missions should be, but all the boards should be designed that the missions never are under terrain. But if they are, just let us know. We'll discuss with your opponent and we'll just happily nudge the terrain out of the way or remove it so it's just clear of the objective. And that was just really cool. I just cannot get over how good the terrain was. It was all painted amazingly well. So the Warhammer World Events team did an amazing job. And it was just so clear and usable. All the perfect size and dimensions for Kill Team. And there were hardly any open spaces. It was all asymmetrical. It was just so good. So just for the terrain alone and the missions, it's 10 out of 10. Perfect. It already won my heart. Now it was just playing to see how the event would go. And then one last thing just before I get into the, well, round recap. Outside of just practicing for TAC Ops, the one thing I was doing was mastering my plan at the scouting phase. So going first is incredibly strong, especially for my kind of kill team and playstyle. So I was figuring out how I can always basically go first. So the way I was thinking, with the scouting phase, you've got Fortify, which beats Infiltrate, and Infiltrate beats Recon, but Recon beats Fortify. So if I'm going first, people generally pick Recon because they want to get that free extra movement. But then I was thinking I can use Infiltrate if I'm going second to guarantee I'm going second, because my opponent will expect me as the attacker to go Recon because I think I'm already going first. Because remember, if you tie on the scouting phase, the attacker always decides. And then if I'm the defender, I would always go with Fortify, because generally there's no reason to pick Fortify against my kill team because I have no shooting operatives. So it was just in Badmoon, I was 4 for 4 for picking the correct scouting option. And spoilers, once again, I was 4 for 4 here. So that was tech I was developing, and I'm glad it really paid off because it was something I put a lot of effort into just to always decipher that I was going first. Because even if my opponent did pick Fortify against me, that's fine because they wouldn't get much out of it. Because once again, I have no shooting and I have mobility to get around barricades. So that's just some tech, and maybe you'll find it useful, but that's what I basically practiced for the event. So going into game 1, I was playing against Death Guard in Loot and Salvage. For this mission, I picked my 5 Gene Stealers and my Tyranid Swarm, giving all my Gene Stealers adrenal glands. And my opponent picked 5 Death Guard. So I had a feeling he would, just because with Loot and Salvage, your Poxwalkers need 2 AP to activate mission objectives. So the problem he'd have, he could swarm into the point, but then not claim it on that turn, so he would be down on points. And because I knew I could go first, my game plan, especially for Loot and Salvage in general, is to move up onto my opponent's objectives, claim them for as long as possible, and then fall back. And by the time I've done that, I've basically got all of their points, and then I can fall back onto mine and just starve them from points, which is what I effectively did. And I'd also gone with security for central control, and then hold a heavy piece of terrain and plant banner. And by the end of that, I had managed to kill 3 Death Guard in combat. I killed his leader with my Devourer, just slowly shooting him, going up and down off the Armatorium Crate vantage point. And then, yeah, it was just, it was rough. I mean, he was a good player. He'd been playing the game for about 3 weeks, but the biggest thing, he had traveled down from Newcastle like on 5 a.m. So he'd spent time just painting. So he like was just a beast for doing that. But unfortunately, he was let down by the mobility of his Death Guard because they're only 2 white movement, and without the banner, they're not free. But if you bunch them around the banner, that means he would have to sacrifice a flank or just his mobility as a whole. So I was able just to freely move on to the points, claim them, and then fall back and claim. That's how it went. So because I won about 18-2 or 3, I think. It was just really big on my side because he'd gone with Seek and Destroy, and effectively he challenged his leader with, well, he challenged my leader with his leader, and I never let that happen. So it was a really good and fun game. And yeah, it was a good start to the tournament because once again, I finished after that, I was ranked in the top 4 and technically second. So I was hoping my momentum would carry me onto game 2. For game 2, this was against the Commandos and a player called Elliot. So this was C's ground. And once again, I'd gone with 10 Gene Stealers because 10 Orc Commandos are just really tough. And I thought I knew them inside and out because I'd played them so much, but I was wrong. So as you see from the picture, there was like in the top left flank, there's a bit of a missing spot. So what I did, I'd won the scouting phase and I moved up first, and I had the option to charge either the Grot or the Daka Boy. Originally, I was going to go for the Grot because I go, that's an easy route and challenge. So I'll just kill the Grot. It's only 7 wounds. I forgot that the Commandos have a stratagem called It's Just a Scratch, and I didn't think I needed to pop feed. So what I did is I charged the Daka Boy because he's only doing 3 attacks with 3/4, and then what my opponent did was punch me for a bit, parry one of my strikes, and then lived on 1 wound because of It's Just a Scratch. And I lost challenge. I couldn't score a route, and that was a big blow to me. And then he just started out playing me. So by the end of Turning Point 2, I was on 2 points and he was on about 7. So Turning Point 3, I had to go play really crazy out of my mind. And the same when Turning Point 4, because I was behind on Gene Stealers because he was killing me faster than I could kill him. And then effectively by the end of Turning Point 3, I'd managed to bring us down to 3 models each. And I did a YOLO charge with my leader to... If I killed the Burner Boy, who was on 4 wounds, I only had 5 on the top left objective, I would have been able to just score route and complete that and then win out. But the problem is he survived on 1 wound and I lost out by 1 point, even though I'd somehow managed to secure the right flank by wiping out all the all the orcs there, including his Daka Boy, his Sniper Boy, his Rocket Boy, and his leader. And it was just so tough. It was super fun. The Grot was so annoying. I had to kill it with my leader because it slingshot across the board and stole a point from me. I was frustrated at myself because I didn't research the matchup enough, and I thought I had. Because basically, if I'd actually stuck with my original guns and gone with the easy challenge, I would have won the game because I would have got free VP from that. I wouldn't have lost an objective to the Grot. And yeah, it's just, I can't fully describe it in length because it was such a fun game. Because if you didn't know it, it turned out I was playing against the head developer of the game. And spoilers, he did go on to finish undefeated. And I think I was his toughest game for the entire tournament. And it was just so hard to claw it back to just a 1-point loss because we thought we had tied, and then we realized he had 1 objective control of mine and he just won by 1. So it was super tense. I'd never played so much. It was some nice consolidation when Steve Wren mentioned, it's fine, you don't need to feel bad, John. He's played 1,000 games or more, 5,000. You've only been playing for 5 weeks. So it was super fun. My hardest game of Kill Team I've ever played, and probably my best. So this is what it's what I come to play. I like testing myself to the max, because even if you lose, when you have a good game like that, it doesn't matter who wins or loses because you know you've done your best. And it was just so much fun because we were just inside each other's heads. It was great. It was so clear. I could talk about this game forever, but it was super fun, even though I sadly lost by 1 point. Then there was game 3, or as my friends like to call it, the Salt game. So this was Awakened Data Spirits, and I was against Deathcore of Krieg. And I was expecting 10 Kriegers with, ancillary support with the missiles. But he took the 4 extra guardsmen. Going into this, I was like, okay, this is going to be a tough matchup because I'm outnumbered. I'll go 10 Gene Stealers just so I don't get shot because I can just abuse the conceal stuff. And I should be able to play fine. And I was looking at him, the guy seemed really friendly. He had all these cheat sheets, which is a good sign, and he seemed to have a good head on his rules. And I was like, okay, normally I have my sensors like warning lights going off if I'm playing against a large kill team. But he seemed to have all these cheat sheets. I always play with a timer, and the staff were announcing the time all the time. So it seemed fine. So we started playing, and it's odd things. On reflection, you kind of see things more when you're not in the moment. But it was like I won the scouting phase. He looked quite annoyed at that in a more like, damn, I should have won it, which kind of betrayed that he was, because he said he was quite new, but it was like he had tried to outmaneuver me by picking Infiltrate, and I'd picked Fortify. So he was clearly expecting me to pick Infiltrate and wasn't expecting me to pick Fortify. So I got to choose who go first because I was the defender. And then we did our strategy phase, and for some reason, like mine was really quick, but it almost ended up us taking like 20 minutes because he did the free dash, which cost him about 5 minutes to move 14 guys up. Then we started playing, and because I was really focused on the game, I didn't realize we'd spent an hour playing Turning Point 1. So I was like, we need to play up because I'm like behind. And then he just started doing strange things. So the first Turning Point, his entire team was concealed, and he'd picked Infiltrate. But then he had, he just YOLO'd guys onto the point even though they would die. So it's like he claimed the points at the end of turn 1. So it was 4-3 to him. But he was doing it in such a way that was unsustainable. And I was like, okay, this is fine. Then it was like, oh, we've played for an hour. That's fine. We just need to play it up faster. Then I started playing faster on turn 2, but obviously it was on the back foot. So what I started doing, which is something I've learned from my friend Itan from offmanmusings.com, which is charge blocking. So what I would do is I would multi-charge 2 guardsmen and kill 1, but I would charge one that's activated and kill the one that hasn't. And what I started doing was, because he'd put all of his guys either in the corner or on the crate, I used 1 guardsman to be charged by 4 Gene Stealers to effectively form a bubble around the point. So the only way he could contest was charging me, but he didn't want to drop down and charge. But because I charged in such a way, he couldn't finish basically within an inch. So he had to go back and around. So it just took a while for him. And while I was speeding through, I'd lost track of time because I was playing out of my mind to do this, because I basically blocked off the points to keep up. So I was slightly behind, but I was like, it's okay. I'll be behind on points turning point 2, but I'm now in a position where turning point 3 and 4, I'll wipe him out, because turning point 2, I killed all his gunners, and the other fighters were just out of range, and I was able in a position to win. And then we had 10 minutes left, and for 5 minutes left, I was like, okay, we need to play really fast because, we've only played 2 turns. Come on, we need to at least play 3. And he's like, no, I'm not going to play fast. I was like, and we finished just like a minute before. I was like, look, can we just play a quick turn 3? Because this is just not fun. And he was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And I was like, he's completely within his rights, because we had reached the time limit of an hour and 45. And then I just, I was upset. So I'm not going to lie about that. I was like, I'm not upset that I've lost, because I ended up losing 2 points because it was 7-5. And he had lost most of his kill team, because what he'd done, he'd suicided onto the point. And the problem I found was when I was like, dude, if you're going to play this kind of kill team, you shouldn't take it to a tournament if you can't actually finish a game with it. Because it's not matter that I won or lost. The problem I have is I've come here to play 4 games of 4 rounds, and you have effectively denied me that. And then he responded with, well, I'm playing a 14-man... No, he said that before I said that. He said, well, I'm playing a 14-man kill team. You can't expect me to play fast, and I'm not going to play fast. So he had just openly admitted to me that he had slow played. And I just got so annoyed. And I just said, like, look, if you want to play that way, that's fine, but there's no way to play in a tournament. As I said, like, I've come here to play 4 games. We haven't had a game. We've had 2 turns. And his friend came over and said, oh, look, that looks really close. And I was like, oh, I won. But I was literally like, only won because of timeout, because he'd just suicided onto the points. He'd managed to claim more tac ops than me. But as I'd found out later, it was just his stall tactic. So normally I'm not one to accuse people of slow playing, but after he had just openly said he was slow playing to me, I did raise it to judges, and they were like, unfortunately, it's the end of the game. There's nothing we can do. So I'd raised it to the judges at, what do you call it? No, I did raise it to judges. And then at the end of the tournament, I went to them again. Just out of interest, did this guy actually finish any of his games? And like, we can't actually get that from the data because he was playing round 4 against Custodes, and they were only on turn 2 as well. So then we looked through BCP, and he had never gotten past turn 2. And all his games, he'd either won or lost by 2 points. And basically, I figured out his tactic after playing him and seeing the Custodes game. What he was doing was just suiciding onto the point, slowing down enough the game that he would only get 2 turns, but knowing he could win in 2 turns because his playstyle was unsustainable. That's how I'd recognized how I could beat it. And the only problem was he knew he could outtime it. And it's really difficult to challenge someone when you're out, like, because you have to go into the mindset of going, this guy's going to slow play me, so I need to do that going into the game. Because I'm normally from Warhammer Underworlds, I'm very good at dealing with slow play and not letting it happen to me. And the fact that I did got really annoying to me. But the problem with this kind of tactic is if you are slow playing, you're not really winning. All you're doing is ruining everyone's games. Because as I said, everyone he played against only got 2 turns of a game. They never finished. And like you can tell from how he played and how he scored at the tournament. Like I'm not going to name names. But it's like, as I said, he would just suicide onto the point, hope he could win, and then just time out because he would just edge out because he knows if he could score more tac ops, it didn't really matter how many VPs he scored as long as he won and scored a lot of tac ops. And it almost worked. So I'm glad he didn't go 3-1 or 4-1. I mean, 4-0, he just went 2-2. But I was super annoyed by that game. It was so bad. People were coming over going, wow, you just like open, like looking and just like, yeah, you just got slow played. This is just a ridiculous game. So it's a shame. Like that game was terrible for me. It almost ruined the event in terms of, not as the event as a whole, not like I'm blaming the staff or anything. It was just like when your time is really precious and you're playing against someone whose tactic is you're only going to play 2 turns, it's just ridiculous. Like, as I've said before, if you're going to an event and you're not comfortable with playing a large or even any kind of team to any sort of time, you shouldn't go to the event, or you should play something that you know you can finish, because it's not fair playing against someone you know you can't finish in the time. It's just like, because he was like, oh, I've only been playing for 3 weeks. I was like, I've only been playing for 4/5. Like that's why I've made sure not to pick an overly large kill team. And it was just the deception, because you wouldn't think someone with all these cheat sheets and who said they had a good head on the rules would take forever to do stuff. And like, there was even stuff on like rulings, but it just becomes more drama. And I don't really want to focus too much more than I already have, because it just, yeah. It was a tarnish to an amazing event. And I think that's pretty much it. My only advice is, if you've like, because the funniest thing is my friend played against another Krieger who was running the exact same loadout with 14 guys, and he finished all his games early. He had no rules issues. No one had an issue with him, and he got 4 favorite army votes. He was the most sporting player at the event. So there's no even excuse that Kriegers take forever, because the most sporting Krieger at the event finished all his games early with 14 operatives as well. So, it is what it is, but just something I need to learn for next time. And if it does help, the events team was super on it. They said, unfortunately, I was the only one to raise that he was slow playing. But next time, they will definitely have something to deal with that, and they'll try and basically make sure that never happens again. So once again, shout out to the Warhammer Worlds event team for being just amazing. Then finally, for Game 4, we're playing Duel of Wits, and this time I was against Commandos, but I was prepared. I thought about going Infiltrate, and once again, I probably should have gone Infiltrate, because I did Seek and Destroy basically from Game 2 onwards. But the problem I have with Infiltrate is it's kind of contradictory to how you want to play. And I thought I was going to be fighting amongst these orcs. But yeah, I went with Seek and Destroy, challenged the Grot, I thought the Grot was going to blow up one of my terrain pieces because he said I'm going to detonate it. And then I was like, okay, cool. That's what he's going to do. He's going to shoot over there. Then I'll run around and charge him and kill him. This will be great. Then his Grot shot across the board and had interlope and disappeared for 2 VP. So that was interesting. But for Duel of Wits, I basically managed to get the gambits every turn. So I was claiming mine and his, mainly because I think he didn't realize how scoring worked. But basically, I managed to max out my primary, effectively almost wipe him out. I kind of blocked him in his own terrain with his own deployment with heavy terrain. And he did play well, but it was just like I made sure he couldn't score any primaries, and we kind of didn't score any secondaries. I scored 1 VP from my secondary. So once again, my secondary like TAC Ops game had like failed dramatically, but I did manage to win. It was fun, at least because I did charge the bomb squig, because I kind of had to charge the bomb squig. So I killed it and then it exploded and killed me. But it was the moral thing that counts, the moral victory. And yeah, it was basically I'd learned everything I'd played against Elliot in round 2. And yeah, I managed to dismantle the Orcs commandos properly and go for quite a dominating win. It was still quite dicey, like the rocket launcher boy I could just never kill, but I made sure he could never really shoot at anyone properly. And yeah, it was just a dismantling game. And that was pretty much it. That's all that happened. I managed to win 13-2, but unfortunately I didn't score enough of my TAC Ops, which in reflection is something I need to work on. That was pretty much the game for round 4. So yeah, overall, after that, I finished 19th out of 38 because we had 2 people drop or just didn't turn up. And technically, I was the highest placing Tyranid player, which was a shock to me because there was only 2 this time. When I played Badmoon, there were 5. So, you know, it really wasn't the score I was expecting because my other friends, Aitan and Charles, finished 3-1. So Aitan finished 4th overall, and I think Charles finished 7th. So with Necrons and Adeptus Mechanicus respectively. But, you know, as my friend said, it's like they were like, you know what, you basically should have won game 3. So you likely would have ended up 3-1, even though I would have probably played against Custodes round 4. But, you know, it is what it is. Overall, I had a really good tournament, and how do you describe it? It is something I had to tell my friends when I was playing Underworld. It's like, you know, even if you don't do as well as you think you'd perform in a tournament, you know, you've got to focus on, was it good overall? Because I didn't go into this thinking I'd win. I was just going in hoping I could have a good time. And overall, I really did. You know, it was, you know, I didn't mind losing game 2 because I got outplayed and made my own mistakes, which is fine because I can identify what I did wrong. And then game 3, I lost because I got timed out. So there's just nothing you can do about that, you know, unless you're on the ball. But that's something I can focus on for next time. But overall, yeah, we had a great time. As I said, the event was run super clearly. The terrain was like perfect, just so good, painted well, all to the right standards, designed specifically for the game and the tournament. The judges were on it, always happy to answer rulings, really clear. We even had game developers attendance playing. Everyone was super friendly, super fun. No one looked like they were having a bad time. Like, everyone was really friendly, and like the food was good. It was good to be back at Bugman's having my mango cider. The Forge World store, we had free entry into the miniatures hall. But like, even going back to the event itself, it was just run clearly. I thought an hour and 45 was too much because normally rounds have been an hour and a half. But an hour and 45 with a half an hour break was actually really good. And generally, I think most of the time we finished about just over an hour and a half. So because we had to set up, the actual game was about an hour and 20, but we spent a while setting up, even though it was just placing objectives and deploying. So the time was actually fine, and the 4 games felt good. The only other thing I would say is if we had to start at 10, so registration was from 9 a.m, first game was from 10:15. I would have preferred if we could have started at 9 a.m, but that's more of a cultural thing, because when I first started at Warhammer World, we started 9 a.m. You know, you'd finish a bit earlier on the Saturday, so you could do more stuff like go into Nottingham or chill out in Bugman's, and they might do like a presentation or something. But I think if you could start earlier, because I know a lot of gamers prefer starting at 10, if we had first round start at 9, so we could finish a little bit earlier, or maybe even fit in another game. The only criticism is like, yeah, we would have round 1, then have lunch, then have round 2, 3, and 4. And that was the only downside, because you would kind of go, you're used to going rounds 1 and 2 lunch, then 3 and 4. And, you know, I'd be okay even if they went early start and you finish a little bit later, but we do 5 rounds. But I don't know, I think that's a lot, because after game 4, I was flagging heavily. Like, and shout outs to the aircon. Like, I know Warhammer World's had a problem with aircon before, we got a bit stuffy, but when they turned on the aircon in round 4, that was, everyone just sighed in exhilaration. It was so strong, it blew everything away. And I guess they've done in, like, because of the pandemic, they put in more powerful ventilation. But it's so good, they had to turn it off, but because it was just blowing everything, all the paper. But oh my gosh, that aircon was so good. Like, the aircon was saved everyone. But overall, I think that is the gold standard for events. They even had best painted. It was clear. They were using the BCP app. They opened up on the Friday for early registration. They disabled the 2VP that you got for best painted, because they said you have to play painted, so it doesn't make sense. It was really clear. Everything was so well run, so smooth, so professional. It's honestly the gold standard for kill team events, and I cannot recommend it any, like, highly enough. Perfect, like perfect from Games Workshop. You did perfect. So if you wanted to play kill team, you will have the best time playing at Warhammer World. Obviously, I need to play more independent events to fully confirm that, but so far, oh my gosh, comparing Badmoon to Games Workshop is a completely different ball game. Like, obviously Games Workshop has the advantage at Warhammer World that they can just procure and paint all this terrain, but the fact they did is just so good. And the clear layouts, the clear communication, it was so good and seamless. And, you know, if you don't play in the UK, for example, if you play in Europe, if you can get your TOs to do the same and you're willing to support them to invest in like kill team terrain, and like they all mirror how Games Workshop operates, that'll be perfect. And if you're in America, I'm 100% sure their Games Workshop events are going to run the same, because they're all managed by Mike, like the same people basically, and it was all coming top down. So what we got in the UK, you should definitely get in America, and I would highly recommend going to any Games Workshop run kill team event. It's just, you're not used to hearing or saying that, but after what we experienced on just on the weekend gone by, it was perfect. Couldn't recommend it enough. And I think when they next open it up, they said if they're allowed to, they'll try to go for like 80 players. Because the other thing is, we thought there were going to be like 20 tables or like 10 tables or something with two kill team boards on each, but we all got around 6x4 with the board and the layout. So we had all this space. There were hand sanitizers at every table. It was just so good. I once again, like game 2, I could just talk about this for ages. But to sum it up, gold standard. Thank you, Games Workshop, and you know, thank you, the Warhammer Worlds events team. You're perfect. You just did the perfect event. So thank you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. For my own reflection, what I need to work on is, well, spotting, slow playing. So one thing I'm probably going to do, what my friend recommended, normally I set the timer to the game, as in like I set it to an hour 45. I probably should, what he said, to just set it to 15-minute increments. So every time an alarm goes off, I just mute it and get, like, my own timekeeping. Because in Underworlds, you have half an hour around, so it's easy to keep track of. I think I'll do that. And I just need to work on my TAC-op selection. I've found Seek and Destroy just isn't that good, because the problem is, the moment your opponent realizes you have it, they just run away. But they run away in such a way that they know they don't have to worry about being near you and still scoring. So it's not bad. It's just no longer as good as I thought. Security is amazing. Recon's really good. And Infiltrate I'm still mixed on. I just need to play with Infiltrate more. But, you know, TAC-op selection is something I knew I was weak on. And it's something I just need to work on. Play more games, play with more varied kill teams, because I found 10 Gene Stealers is really good, but it's just that attack op selection that weakens them. Some games you have to run 10 Genius Stealers, but they're oddly quite balanced from what I've found. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the Tyranids, and I just need more practice, because I think I've got a good head on everything, and yeah, I just need to focus on attack op selection. So I hope that helps, because, you know, I've got to help my fellow Hive Fleet users out there. So, you know, let me know if you want to just talk about the Tyranids and the Hive, well, in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to help, even just via DM, whatever you want. I'm always happy to talk about Tyranids and sharing tech, because if we all share, we all get better. So yeah, that was pretty much it for my event report. As I forgot to mention at the start of the video, this will be done in written format as an article as well, we can check out in the episode description below. And please remember to like and subscribe. Comment down in the episode description below and let me know what you thought of the video, what you thought of the event, and well, would you come to a Warhammer World event or Games Workshop run Kill Team event now that you've heard how I experienced it? So yeah, let me know down in the comment section below. But that's pretty much it for today's video. I'll have another video scheduled later in the week, but I hope you enjoyed it. It was really fun talking about events again. This was my first real proper event back after almost like 18 months, 2 years of nothing. And I'm so glad it was at Warhammer World. And I just had fun. The game was so good. There are a few balance issues here, but it's nothing mechanically wrong with the game. I just had so much fun playing Kill Team. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening. So until next time, remember, you can keep rolling crits no matter what the time says.